Hi, I'm David Anderson, and this is the Timex Sinclair Online User Group. Today we are joined by Lon Hildreth, one of the engineers who used to work at Timex. And if you have seen any of our previous meeting recordings, Will Collum was one of the
The
folks.
date today is also June 26, 2022.
Thank you, June 20.
Important
Yes,
for
right.
future reference. Yeah.
And it is 2 p.m. Eastern, my time. Um, and so Lon and Will and Scott McCourt all worked together at Timex. And with that, I'm going to let Lon take over and tell us about what he did.
Yeah, actually, I can share my screen.
Oh yeah, let me set that. I keep forgetting about that.
Okay.
Uh,
I scanned in a few things I found.
So you opened the Timex capsule?
Yes, I did. Yes, as I told David earlier, I have a box labeled Timex that had been sealed. I found since 1987, so which was prior to a move. So I just opened that a few weeks ago, and I was amazed at what I found in there. Anyways, Scott and Lou Galie, Dave Boyle, and myself worked together at Burroughs before joining Timex, and I found this memo that clearly points that out. Scott reported to Lou, and Dave and I reported to Scott. And at this time, we were working on a product called Office 2, which was an OEM of Convergent Technologies workstations. And we were adding a bunch of applications to it. And I see here we were finding problems with Convergence Pascal compiler. And I must say, Convergent had tremendous tech support. I'd get on the phone with them, and they'd step through the debugger with me, and they go for like an hour, and it was just incredible. So that was the start of our relationship. At one point, Lou left and went to Timex, and yeah, and this is a copy of the letter where I sent Timex my resume to Rex Naden. This I obviously was directed, by Lou Galie, or suggested by Lou. So that's what started the process for me. And I even have record of Scott leaving Burroughs at the end of 1982.
Wow.
So he obviously joined Timex at the start of 1983.
Lon, can you explain what would be the reason someone would want to leave an established company like Burroughs to kind of go to a small computer company that wasn't really too established in 1982? To what would be the reason to sign on at that point?
Well, for me at that time, our group at Burroughs had really disintegrated, and Burroughs offered me and Dave a position with Burroughs in Flemington, New Jersey. and we did not want to move to Flemington, New Jersey. So we were exploring other options, and I mean, we with our connections to Timex, that was clearly the leading choice. So this was something else I found that is probably of interest. Lou discussing the hiring of a couple of new people and a repositioning of some people. Victor Schiff and Mike Brannigan, I'm pretty sure you know about those people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we know Mike. Will told us a little bit about Mike. He didn't know that much, but wow, this is fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. And see, Bruce Honold down at the bottom there, who headed up the QA department, who also had come from Burroughs. He wasn't part of the group I was in at Burroughs, but I'm not sure if Lou or Scott actually knew him at Burroughs, but certainly his Burroughs connection didn't hurt him in going to Timex.
Oh wow. Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And a bit of an org chart.
Yeah.
It unfortunately only went down to the manager level and not the worker bees. But,
Wow.
Now I have a question for David here, because
Yeah.
I'm looking at this org chart, and all of these people, their names don't mean anything to me. If you see some names that are important that you want to point out to us, I would find that helpful.
So,
because, yeah, go
right.
ahead.
So, Adam, I recognize Scott McCourt's name. That was the manager of the area that Lon and Will worked, right?
right.
Okay. Mike Brannigan is the person, one of the people whose names is on the technical manual. But before now, I didn't know what he did other than help write that manual, along with a person named Virginia Carol Corcoran. But all these other names are brand new to me. And well, I mean, Lou Galie, I knew Lou Galie's name, but and I suspect that Joao, who runs the Load ZX Spectrum Museum, would be equally fascinated by this.
Yeah, I must say, a lot of the names that I've seen on memos, I don't remember.
Oh, and I'm sorry. I should mention I have talked to Rex Naden in the past, and maybe I should see if Rex would be interested in joining us for one of these Zoom sessions, because he went on to have a fascinating career too.
Yeah, I have no idea what he did after I left Timex.
You know what? So he went to, if I recall correctly, I think he went to VLSI, which was a competitor to the folks who made the SCLD for the 1500 and the 2068, but they had sampled some parts for it. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. So we worked on a Zilog development system, and at one time there was a problem with it, and we put in a service call, and I can't believe that I actually have the record of the service call.
That's amazing. So Lon, Will told us a funny story about this, about how, he came in and you guys asked him to do something, to reconfigure how it was plugged in, and he's crawling around down under the development system, adjusting the plugs, and then comes up for air to turn it on, and nothing happens. And as it turned out, he plugged the one extension cord into the other extension cord.
So I'm looking at this paper here. At some point, Zilog was a subsidiary of Exxon.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Huh.
And
Did not know.
as it says in the 80s, Zilog was not a very big company, and Exxon bought them.
That kind of dovetails pretty good into what I mean, it's not new, but it's only something I came across this week, which was how when I went to the Zilog.com website, how they were bought out at some point in the last year or two or a few months, I don't know when, but by
Littelfuse.
Littelfuse, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's a bizarre purchase, but yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a documentary on some of the engineers, that went into Zilog because they basically were disenfranchised with the other companies that they were working for at the time, right? Especially, I think, Intel, because they didn't like the management, and so that's why the Zilog is really similar, right, to the 8080. Obviously, we know from CPM days, but anyway, that Exxon bought them and kind of pretty much was hands off. But you can watch that documentary. I can't remember what it was called, but they kind of leveraged their hand later because they wanted to have some cards in the game if Zilog turned out to be a big player, which it eventually did, right?
Yeah. So anyway, Lon, this is what we'll do to you. We'll interrupt you.
Yeah, no problem. So as you can see, that development system had no zap.
Right.
And when the serviceman came in, he said, "You probably know more about this system than I do."
Oh,
and it turned out he was right.
So it looks like he replaced it says pod, and from my knowledge of these things, I think that means the programming module that would program EPROMs.
Could be.
Yeah.
I really have no idea at this point.
Yeah. Well, it was almost 20 years ago, or 40 years ago.
I like how they're. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I look at the address, 1315 Dell Avenue.
That's what I was going to say.
I worked about a building away from that building some years ago.
I just thought it was ironic that it was on Dell Avenue. I don't think Dell made any machines with the Z80 or Zilog processors in them.
Don't think so, but I know that location. I know the building. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the card of the serviceman who came.
Oh, we should call him up.
That would be interesting. Yeah, so he worked out in New York, apparently.
Yeah. Cool.
Later on in the year, I was looking at putting CPM onto the 2068.
Well, Lon, before you continue here, why don't you tell, because you kind of skipped from looking for a job at Timex to where you're already working there. So how did you get hired, and about when did that happen? And can you lead us through that a bit?
That happened in February. I'm not sure of the exact date, but I know I was an employee at Timex for 53 weeks. And Dave started 1 week before I did, because a friend of mine came out from Illinois and for a week while I was between jobs. So
It was like
yeah,
Timex did a lot of hiring there in the early '83 timeframe for this project, apparently, right?
yeah, I'm not sure just how many people we had in total. I saw something later that said when we shut down. In fact, I think I scanned that article in, and that'll be coming up. But there were, I think, 24 people that were laid off, or maybe 26.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. I mean, relatively speaking, that's a kind of small team.
yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to the hiring process, I must say I do not remember actually having an interview there, and it's quite possible I didn't, since I knew Lou and Scott very well.
Hmm.
I
So
So
you
you
got
think
slipped in there.
you think you maybe just got hired directly, huh?
possibly. I mean, it's possible I talked to someone else, but I apparently don't have a record of that, and no memory of it. So
Interesting.
By
And
the time you were,
according
go
to this,
ahead,
you
Galie.
took no trips to the Far East, Europe, or domestic.
yeah, that's very true.
So Lon, by the time you were hired on,
Yeah.
the Timex 2000 was already being made, like, upgraded, right? But to the 2068. So like there was already
Yes.
like past where it was just going to be a plain ZX Spectrum.
Right. Yeah. If they were just going to rebrand the Spectrum, they probably wouldn't have needed any engineers.
And I'm sorry I was a few minutes late there, Lon, right? So,
Yes.
and what was your role at Timex then? I know you had the flow chart, the
Well,
org chart up earlier.
he's going to get to that.
Okay, okay,
But I was a software engineer.
okay.
Excuse
So,
me. Do you hear me?
yes.
Hello, I'm René Chavarria from Buenos Aires, Argentina. My first computer was a Timex Sinclair 1000. The second one was the Timex Sinclair 2068. I am very proud of being a Timex Sinclair user. Unfortunately, I have not activity with my old Timex Sinclair computer. It's in I keep it in a safe place. I hope you understand my English. I have no opportunity to speak in several years, a lot of years, and it's so hard because it's different read, write English or hear English. But could be a good thing to speak in English with you if you understand me, because it's a good practice. Do you understand me?
Yeah, yes, we do, Renee. You sound good.
Hello.
But
I'm very pleased to meet you all, boys. Lon, Miles, and
so,
Bailey Ailey.
Renee,
Bailey Ailey is correct? Or Bolly Ailey?
Valley.
Bolly Ailey.
Yeah, my name is Adam, actually, but I should probably change that, but whatever.
Hello, Adam.
So, Renee, can I interrupt you?
yes.
Can we let Lon talk, and then we can talk after?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Continue. Oh,
Yeah. Going back to the CPM, I found I actually started working on that in September,
Oh my.
which was 2 months before I made the trip out to Monterey, California, to visit Digital Research. I took them a 2068 and a couple of micro drives, and spent a full day with them, of which I found I have copious notes about that. And this this was the last schedule for the CPM project.
Wow.
So
Oh, that's crazy. So let me ask you a little question about this, Lon. So would the way that you were doing it, was the 2068 going to run the CPM?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and
I think they were going to do a cartridge for that, right? They were going to do a CPM cartridge.
That's quite possible.
Okay.
I'm sure I have notes about that, but I haven't read everything
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Daniel from Portugal. Question about that. Does anything about that even exist? Is there any sort of software or listing that you still have with you? That would be fascinating to put the TS 2068 working with CPM.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have any code related to that. I might.
Okay.
Can I make a comment? Hi, everyone. João from Portugal, also here from the Load Museum. So we've been doing lots and lots of work of preserving the story, but mostly based on Timex Portugal, although there are a lot of connections, Lou Galie, Vitor Schiff, many others. I have hundreds and hundreds of telex. I don't know if your name appears there or not. I will now pay much more attention and let you know. And the other thing, the thing I was going to comment because of Danielle's question, but I see that in the chat people are already answering, is that you can run CPM in a Timex machine, but by using the FDD, the floppy disk drive system, because the Timex launched the CPM and the thing they called on side B, the monitor emulator that allows you to run CPM, and then they kept evolving that, but using the FDD. That's what I know for now.
Yeah, that was what my question was leading to, Lon, was that you could, buy these things and run CPM, but the CPM ran on a computer sitting inside the disk drive interface, and the 2068 was just a terminal in front of it. So running CPM on the 2068 seems even more interesting to me.
Yep. I don't think I found anything about that.
Yeah. Oh man.
So more detailed schedule, which I had a project completion date of March 30th
of the following year of 1984. Okay.
Obviously that did not complete.
Oh, right there. There's the answer to you have the answer to Carl's question right there. It says LROS version if boot ROM not available. So yeah, it would have been a cartridge if, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I thought I remember somewhere in the cobwebs that CPM was going to be some kind of OS cartridge. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't remember where, but that's just rattling around in there.
So Lon, I'm wondering, like, since CPM was a disk-based system, what was the plan there? You said you brought along to digital research microdrives, but like CPM didn't run from the microdrives or cassettes or anything, like on any system as far as I'm aware. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, so it looks like the goal was to have it run. Well, he's got cassette IO at the very top of the sheet there, and then my guess is that it would eventually run on the microdrives, right?
I think that was the plan.
Yeah, very crazy. Wow. And March 30th never came because project was never completed.
Yeah.
Well, guys, if I may ask, what do we know about the microdrives? Because was there any, let's say, goodwill towards the development of the Timex versions of the microdrives? Because what I hear from Portugal is that they were completely, let's say, against it. So they were trying to push Clive Sinclair to adopt the floppy disk drive, which obviously would never happen and never happened. So it seems things in US could have been different. Is that
we
real?
were 100% in on the micro drive.
Wow.
Okay.
Earworms.
So
Yeah,
you must,
the-
well, Lon, you must have had a working microdrive system,
Yeah, absolutely.
and it worked with the 2068s.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
What was the interface? Was it a cobbled together interface one from Sinclair, or was it a proprietary design from Timex?
I'm really not sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know eventually, right, the microdrive interface was supposed to be part of the BEU, right? That's where that was going to be in that unit. So I've never seen or heard of any like separate unit like they did with the Sinclair, right? The interface one. I've never seen anything like that was going to come out for the 2068. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I do not currently have a micro drive.
They didn't let you didn't let you take that as part of the severance package?
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised actually, but for whatever reason that got left behind.
That's crazy. So yeah, go ahead, Lon.
So this was a memo from John Ross about a review. It was very positive.
Yeah, I do remember that review.
And I found in the box several magazines which have reviews in them. So I don't know if there might be any of these that you haven't seen.
There may be one or two that you have that I have not. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I remember there was quite a few reviews on it, and most of them were pretty, on the positive side, but there, obviously was some that weren't so positive.
That is hard to believe.
So, Lon, do you recall what it was like, when you started there? Did they talk to you about what they were working on, what they wanted you to do?
Well, I mean the initial goal, of course, was to get to have something to show at CES, which was in June. So that was just 4 months after I started. And I don't know if any of you may have seen the series *Halt and Catch Fire* that was on AMC a few years back. That focused on a compact-like company trying to get something to demo at the 1983 CES. So that really got my attention. I thought the first season of that show where that was the focus was just tremendous.
Yeah.
It was a show that handled tech in a reasonable fashion. which is pretty unusual for Hollywood. But it was a lot like that. Just, everyone working towards this common goal of getting to CES. And of course, the hardware wasn't ready when CES came around. We had the keyboard, but as far as the board goes, that was breadboards. So for CES, they had 3 machines running with breadboards underneath the table. So that was interesting, but it worked, and obviously Sears and Service Merchandise, among others, bought into what we had.
Yeah, and it's kind of lucky back then because they had 2 CESs back in those days, right?
Right.
They had the winter CES and they had the summer CES, and I don't know when that stopped, but because I've been to quite a few CESs, winter CESs in the 90s and the early 2000s, but because summer CES was in Chicago, if I recall right. It was it was over, and then the winter one was obviously over here in Las Vegas. But I don't know that I guess that wouldn't work now because they only have the one in January. So
right.
So I have a question about those breadboarded 2068s. Were they basically Spectrums that had like additions onto them with for the sound chip and things like that? Do you remember?
I mean, it was the 2068 design.
But it was like the boards that the engineers built as part of the production process of developing it. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were a software engineer prior to the CPM part. What was your role?
Well, I also found my performance review.
Oh my gosh. Was it sterling?
You want to share that?
Well, it lists the 7 items for what I did. So this is what I actually worked on. I wrote a chapter on initialization in the TS2000 software architecture. I did software design of initialization and channels in the TS2000 system software design document. Implementation and debugging of initialization and channels portions, resulting in the release of TS2068 system ROMs. They made several application software cartridges for both production cartridges and demonstration cartridges. Wrote test spec for Rev 5 of TS2068 system software, but decision was made not to update system ROM, so this was dropped. Bugs found in current software while doing this led to dropping of bank switching controller chip. And they studied the Sinclair microdrive for feasibility of implementing Timex disk operating system and CPM, and the software design of CPM BIOS for microdrive.
Wow. So, all right, I have
That's
questions.
apparently all I did.
That's all you did, right? So I have questions now.
Okay.
Right. So you mentioned that bugs were found in the current, the ROM that was shipped, right? And also the whole channels and the bank switching problems. And I feel like that those are all kind of intertwined, like, that the ability to open channels in essence doesn't exist beyond a certain channel number, like it's channel number 4. And you can't open channels to anything other than the screen or the keyboard. And as you mentioned, the bank switching code is just a little bit buggy. So do you recall, discovering that kind of stuff? Do you recall anything about,
I have no recollection of it beyond this piece of paper.
Wow. Well, so okay, but what you have actually just...
Now, one of the other things I found was
dear.
So there may be something in here about that. I don't know. This was kind of sketchy at the beginning and undated, but then at some point I started dating it, and there's a lot of CPM information in here, but
oh my,
I haven't taken the time to go through this in any detail.
Yeah. So one thing you did confirm for us, and that has sort of been speculation since forever, is that the the ROMs are socketed in the 2068, and the speculation was that when the folks who got really into the hardware and stuff, when they figured out that there was bugs in the ROMs, they thought, okay, well, the reason they're socketed is because Timex was going to release a non-buggy ROM, but needed to ship at a certain point in time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that just sounds like exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool to find out.
Yeah. Because I mean, we certainly we're very committed to particular dates in order to get it out for Christmas.
Yeah. That makes sense. And so, you said that at some point the bank switching chip, for lack of a better expression, was dropped. Do you have any idea when that time frame, when that happened, or was it just like in sort of January or February of '84?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to take a look through the notebook to see if there's any detail on that.
Yeah.
Or if there's a memo about it.
Wow.
I mean, I would honestly have to speculate that probably happened, Dave, probably in the summer probably of '83, because they needed to make decisions to get that thing into production.
Right.
Because I know, when I got mine was like in November, right, of '83. And so they had to have produced them and shipped them because they were all produced in Portugal, as far as most of the stickers on the bottom made in, I think they were made in Portugal, or maybe they were made in Singapore, or anyway.
I thought they were made in South Korea.
That could be too, right?
That too,
Maybe you're right. Yeah.
Portugal.
But
and
anyway,
South Korea.
there has to be all the shipping time, right, to get them to warehouses here and to distribute them. And so I would have to imagine, probably by what, August, September, maybe, that kind of those decisions probably would have been made. It's interesting you say that's bank switching chip, because there's not really a chip inside the 2068 that does.
Well, that's because it was dropped. Right.
And that's kind of what we kind of thought was going to be in the plus expansion unit, right? But maybe that's an interesting observation that, maybe they redesigned the board when they decided to take that chip out. Maybe that was part of the design, and we don't never see that because it's not part of the current, right? The boards that actually got put into production. There's no, I mean, the SCLD's on there, and I would think some of the logic for that would have been in there, because there is the bank enable, right, pin that comes off of that chip. And but I mean, as far as a chip to handle the bank switching, right? Yeah, you're right. There is no chip in the 2068 for that. So
Lon, a lot of reverse engineering happened, of course, and there was a guy in. He lives in Endicott, New York, who worked for IBM. who was an engineer for IBM, and he was an early adopter. I think he got a ZX81 kit, and actually his dad got one too. And he got the 2068. He ended up writing a very, very in-depth series of articles about how the bank switching should have worked just by reverse engineering the ROM, right? And there's a bunch of things in there. There's a bunch of clues in there, like data is shifted out in nibbles to registers that would have been in, in the bank, the expansion unit where that chip would have lived. So stuff was shifted out literally 4 bits at a time, which was a interesting decision. But it was probably based on whatever the hardware path folks were considering. But yeah, he wrote this just astounding reverse engineering / disassembly of that portion of the ROM. And again, the bugs. The bugs were well documented.
The interesting story, when we got in the packaging, the box for the 2068, I don't have one of those boxes, so I don't know what it says on it, but it listed some feature that we had decided to omit.
Oh.
And so we have however many thousands of these boxes that say we have this feature. So Dave Boyle looked at it, and we looked into what would it take to implement this feature now, and whatever it was, it turned out to be easy to do. He got it done in about a day.
Oh my Lord.
But
now see, now I have to go back and look at the box and see if I can figure out what that feature was.
They have one upstairs if needed. You can go and get it.
Now that would be a different box though than what we had in the US, right? Or do you have the US box as well?
No, I'm referring to the US one.
Oh,
to the
yeah.
Timex, not the Timex computer. Yes.
Wow, that's crazy. So you started working. It sounded like you did some documentation analysis of the ROM in order to document it as your first sort of steps leading towards developing some kind of disk operating system. Does that sound about right, Lon?
Well, I did some initial design on it. They documented the design.
Yeah.
And then did the implementation.
So I'm wondering, because you said you wrote a chapter, I'm wondering if that documentation ended up in what was later released as the technical manual, which does describe some of the things you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's fair.
Don't know. I do have the third-party software guide.
Yes,
which I thought you have.
Well, so actually, Jeff, I don't know if Jeff Mazur's with us today. Jeff Mazur wrote. There were these 2 books that Sam's, the publishing company, put out about the 2068, and he wrote the intermediate advanced one, and somehow you guys, Timex must have sent that to him as helpful for writing his book, and he sent that to us just gosh, I feel like it was about a month ago or so, and it was just loaded with all sorts of interesting information.
Yeah. But I looked through what you had online, and it is the exact same version that I have.
Cool. There's some technical memos that were put out. Do you recall those? Have you stumbled across those in your
Let's see. Oh, this is something about the micro drive.
oh
The Timex micro drive operating system.
oh my.
Distributed for your review.
Well, that's something that we don't have yet.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of things actually that's probably never been
Yeah, it does sound that way.
archived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't think there's any copyright or proprietary. There might be still. I mean, after 40 years, I don't think anybody cares. But
Well, Carl, Bruno said that he talked to Lou Galie a number of years ago. I think when Lou was still at Timex, and Timex passed along to him that you could share whatever you could find. In essence.
Okay.
You know, that's pretty interesting, because that's one thing that concerns me a lot. So I'm in contact with I've exchanged 2 or 3 emails with the current Timex CEO, and then he handed over the conversation to a vice president of marketing or something. And so over the years, I've been exchanging a few emails with them. I haven't told them the amount of information we had access to. And some of the things I want to release, but at the same time, I'm concerned because, for example, I knew Timex Portugal and the Investronica, sorry, I don't want to change the subject, but just to give the context. I knew that Timex Portugal and Investronica were in Spain. They were doing some confidential project to launch a computer without Sinclair. And I have a memo from one of the lawyers from Timex USA suggesting how to address Amstrad, because it was Amstrad already, to try to avoid major problems when they talked about it. So we are talking about some things that are kind of sensitive. So I think one of these days I'll need to approach Timex and ask if they put in writing that we can share whatever we want, because like I said, we're talking about something like 2,000 or 3,000 PDF files that some of them have interest, not all of them, of course.
That's crazy.
So we should confirm that.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely need to do. But I would think after there's got to be I know copyrights expire after a certain period of time. I can't remember how long it is, but
a very long time.
Yeah, I think it's but for the most part, these machines, I think it's 75. Maybe it's 75.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it is 75. Yeah.
But most of this stuff is really technically irrelevant at at this stage. So I mean, even if it was released, I mean, what competitive advantage would anybody really have for it? It's just but yeah, I mean, it's obviously better to get the permission from.
Yeah, we're talking about things like knowing how much it costs, the components, what was the production at a certain moment in time. So we're talking about things that are internal, and we didn't get them with the permit of the guys that wrote it. So we got it because someone that was in the recipient of those telex files and all of that, well, eventually died, and the family is helping us to preserve this memory. But so yeah, it's a tricky thing. Eventually we will release, of course, but I'm also very interested in helping and knowing what we can get from Timex Corporation.
So Lon, is that big pile of stuff? Is that from your box? To the big pile of, oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you. Yeah. Oh my.
This is some printouts of code.
Yeah.
As is this stack.
Oh, good grief.
I don't know what all this is. I see something says extension ROM,
Yeah.
but
So Lon, what did you do your development on? Did you do it on that Zilog system?
you know, we had a VAX system,
Oh, that's right. Okay.
which got we got probably in March of '83.
Wow.
Because we had someone from DEC come in and do some training with us, and that person is noticeable because her name is Bruce. Bruce Arwine. And it's notable because she did that training. Then months later, she was our contact at Digital Research.
Oh, wow.
She had changed jobs, and she was still working out of Massachusetts.
Huh.
But we went out to California at the same time I did, and they really hosted me out there. But yeah, her name was Bruce. She said her grandmother's name was Bruce. In fact, it was a family tradition. The firstborn child in every generation was named Bruce.
Isn't there a Monty Python skit about the Bruces? You know what I'm talking
about? Yeah, there is.
But she broke the tradition, though. She named her child Michael.
So okay, so I think I recall seeing some mention of the VAX in the code listings that are in the technical manual, and I know that a lot of folks. It was a VAX system, right? Yeah. I know a lot of folks did, cross development basically on Vaxen, as they used to call them back then. So I assume you spent a lot of time writing Z80 code on the VAX, or machine code, or assembler rather.
Yeah, we wrote Z80 assembly.
Yeah.
I don't really remember just what we did on the VAX and how that interfaced with the Zilog development system.
Right. Well, both of them would have had available 5 1/4 inch discs, I think. Or maybe the Zilog was 8, I can't recall. So when you started working on the CPM stuff, I mean, was your first step to go out to digital, or was there stuff you did before?
I worked on it for 2 months before making the trip. So which I have detailed in that notebook.
Oh, that's astounding. That's astounding. Wow. And so one of the questions that I'm a little bit familiar with the memory map that CPM wants, and it wants to put CPM preferred to have the like the 2K BDOS, I think it was called, up at the top of memory, and the 2068 ROM starts at the bottom of memory. Did you have how did you work around that, or did you not get that far?
I have no idea.
Did you guys have an emulator running on the VAX? I mean, to help you do coding, or?
I don't remember.
It was a long time ago.
It was, and like Will, I haven't worked in this realm since then.
Yeah. So actually, let's talk about that a little bit. So what did you do after Timex?
I went to a company in Massachusetts called CompuGraphic.
I remember them. Yeah.
Dave Boyle also went to CompuGraphic.
Oh.
And I was there 8.5 years and never released a product.
What? What? I mean, you worked on products, right?
Oh yeah. We worked on actually 2 different publishing system products. They both went about 2.5, 3 years and then got canceled.
Oh wow.
And I worked on a small Macintosh product, but I shouldn't call it product because again, it never got released.
Never got released.
But it was connected to publishing in some way.
That must have been extremely frustrating then. I know I would, if I'm working on something for almost 9 years and nothing comes to fruition to it, I would be like, what the heck am I doing? I'm spinning my wheels here.
Yeah. It was incredibly frustrating. Especially after having been at Timex, where I got something released in less than a year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. That's craziness. So what did you do after CompuGraphic?
Yeah, we worked at a couple of different places, fairly short term, and then went to a small company called Aries Systems, which they got their start with a Medline database search engine.
Okay.
And at the time I joined, they were going into putting some full text of medical journals on CD-ROM, which was a big thing then. That was 1995. So that used the same interface as the Medline search the software used, which was pretty good. And I made some extensions to that software so we could display tables and the images in addition to the full text of the articles. There was a magnificent search engine that the company founder had devised.
Oh wow!
And that eventually, as time went on, actually all of that got put onto the web.
Yeah.
And eventually it led to us doing an online submission and peer review system, which is still ongoing. And it's the leading system in the industry.
Oh wow! Okay.
I'm still working there. 27 years.
Wow.
Although 4 years ago, the founder decided to retire, and he sold the company to Elsevier, which was one of our biggest customers, and now they own us as well.
So I know I've just come out of the medical education world. I used to work at a medical school, and so I'm familiar with the stuff that you're talking about. So what I'm gonna go way back in time. What prompted you to decide that this was your career path? I mean, at the end of high school, you went to college, I assume, right? Where,
Yeah.
where did you end up going to college?
I went to college at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign.
Okay.
And initially, I mean, in high school, I really didn't have a good idea of what I wanted to do. I liked math. So I actually started out as a statistics major. But after taking an introductory computer class, I thought, oh, this is what I really like.
Yeah.
So I switched my major to be in computer science and mathematics.
And they were a big computer science school at the time, if I recall, right?
Yeah, they were generally ranked in the top 5.
Yeah, they were, right, exactly. Yeah. For those who don't know the history of computer science, universities, the university you went to was one of the biggest for comp sci in the United States.
Yeah, so I kind of lucked out in that regard, so since that wasn't my goal to begin with.
That's pretty crazy. Wow. And so, did you go directly to Burroughs from university? Okay. Wow.
Yeah. That was they had put an ad in the bulletin that the computer science department put out for graduates.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent them a resume. They called me. They did a 30-minute phone interview and invited me out for a full day of interviewing. So I moved to Danbury, Connecticut.
Wow.
And
kind of miss
the 2.5.
Kind of miss the old. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, that's about all I have there, I think.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I just kind of miss the old days of applying for jobs. If anybody's been in the job market after the internet hit, it's just been pretty ridiculous.
Speaking of applying for jobs, I bought this monthly minder as the Timex was about to be terminated. It kept track of my interviews here, and I put down the February 21st, Timex kills computers.
Wow. That was a Friday?
That's a Tuesday.
A Tuesday, okay.
The very next day at 9:00, I had an interview with Dictaphone in Norwalk, Connecticut.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
So I think we had a pretty good idea of when the end was coming in order for me to schedule the interview then.
Yeah. Well, the Dan Ross was shown the door a little bit earlier in the I think it was at the end of '83 or so.
I think it was.
Or was it January?
I'm in January.
Okay. Yeah, he was shown the door, and there was a couple names that were, there was a triad of people who were going to take over his work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure the writing was on the wall too. I mean, there must have been a heck of a rumor mill with.
I'm sure there was. I don't really have a good recollection of that period.
Well, so Will said you guys spent a lot of time playing, I think it was Ant Attack?
No doubt.
Well, and since you had a Vax, did you guys have a copy of Colossal Cave? Or what might have been called Adventure?
Yeah, I played Adventure in college.
Oh, did you? Okay. Okay.
I don't recall having it on that fax.
That's pretty funny.
So I have a general question about your use of the Timex Sinclair 2068. So the computer, when it was released, what did you think of its release? Did you use the computer yourself at home? What was your computer at home, or you're like, well, these Timex machines are for kids? What was your general view of them?
This was my computer at home.
Yes.
Which I think they pretty much they gave me my first day of work there. And the printer.
Nice. And a lifetime supply of paper, right?
Yeah. I guess this was a 16K
RAM pack.
Yeah. So that was all I had at home, and after this was released, all the engineers were given one for personal use. But I don't think I really used it all that much at home. But they also have the cartridges.
Yeah. So one of those actually showed up on eBay a year or two ago with this sort of plastic sled around it.
Yeah. And the two cartridges. This one has Scrabble in it.
Scrabble. Well, that was never released, so that's interesting.
No,
yeah. I got some other EPROMs. Let's see. I have Ant. It must be Ant Attack.
Yeah.
Psychopath.
Yeah. That sort of rings a bell.
Casino.
Yeah, that one came out.
And this other one isn't a game. Let's see. Spectrum L Ross with 48K cartridge download.
Wow. Yeah, so that's what they were calling the Chameleon back in '83 when the thing was released. Well, that's crazy.
Well, let me be, the Chameleon, is that just the Spectrum ROM? Is that
Yeah.
what that is?
Yeah. Because it would, be able to change the colors, as it were.
Oh, I see.
So Lon, part of what Adam asked was, what was did you have any expectations about how people would use this thing?
Yeah, I don't think so, really. I mean, it's just, in the same space as the Commodore 64 and the Coleco Atom, which I remember when the Atom got released, someone at Timex got hold of it, and there was a big crowd of people around it to see what is our competition doing here.
Oh wow!
And Coleco was actually another company in Connecticut, I think.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
They were. And now that you mention it, I had sent them a resume as well. I don't remember if I ever heard back from them or not. I'm pretty sure I never interviewed with them.
They would have probably had you sewing together Cabbage Patch Kids. So,
well, Coleco did a lot of things. One of the things that they made were above ground swimming pools, which I spent a summer installing in 1984.
And Lon, is that 268 that they gave you? Is that a production unit, or is that maybe a pre-prod unit or something?
No, I'm pretty sure it's a production unit.
Okay.
Yeah. When the end came, I did get another one. The one in a box, but I didn't keep it. I gave it to a friend. And I know he used it quite a bit for a while, anyways, and he went out and bought a lot of the software for it, since the software was real cheap.
Right, right. So actually, that's a good segue. Jeff wants to know if Timex understood the importance of the software portion, in terms of a successful computer systems. Did they?
Oh, yeah, I would say they certainly did, and they had a lot of the developers that they worked with. Yeah, I mean, the QA was testing third-party software all the time.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right, because you had to send it in for approval, as it were.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the fabled states and capitals, which we all got very sick of, because that was like the first thing we were ever testing on a cartridge. That we discovered after putting it on a cartridge, it had gone through a lot of testing before then, but after putting it on the cartridge, and you start up the machine, and it starts states and capitals, and it would always start with the same state.
Oh, so you must have used something that resulted in a fixed input to the random number generator.
Yeah, it was used the number of ticks that the machine had done,
which would always be the same as soon as you turned it on, of course.
Exactly.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So they put something in that required user input before it actually started.
Yeah.
So to introduce some random amount of time.
Right. That's hilarious.
That kind of brings a question, well, not a question, but an observation. They probably, since you had a bunch of software folks, right? They were probably, a lot of those folks were converting, right, Spectrum-based software to run on the 2068, since the ROM calls were all different, right? So that probably was their job, to go through and basically make those pieces of software work on the 2068. I'm sure there had to be several folks that were doing that within Timex.
Well, and Carl, to your point, that document that Lon showed earlier, the one that Jeff shared with us, is all about that. It's all about how to convert your Spectrum program to run on the 2068. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. So I don't know, if you followed what happened, afterwards, Lon, but there were at minimum three disk drive systems. There was a company in California that made a system kind of like the micro drive, in that it was an endless loop, little cassette tape system. They made a unit for the 2068.
You talking about A&J?
Yeah, the A&J micro drive, A&J micro. Theirs was, the parent company was Exatron. They made these tapes and other stuff. Stuart Neufeld, who was here earlier but had to leave, he had a company called Zebra Systems that he started roughly the same time that Timex decided to leave the business, and he had a programmer, and he was an engineer. They designed all kinds of stuff. He designed a little circuit board that would plug into the back and let you hook up a koala pad. I don't know if you remember the koala pad. It was a sort of an early tablet.
Yeah.
To the 2068. His programmer wrote a ROM that when you plugged it into the cartridge slot, it would boot up in 64 column mode. So it took advantage of the you know, what was sort of built into there but not finished. And you know, they finished that part, that thing, I think. So right, so Zebra brought out a bunch of stuff. There was, like I said, there was three physical disk drive systems. Like, you know, they would support anything from 3-inch discs to 8-inch discs. And then you know, modems. You guys, Timex had a modem in the works that you know, people bought you know, directly from Anchor. You know, like Zebra bought them from Anchor and sold them. And you know, folks would do all of their full powered computing things on the little 2068. You know, they do word processing. There was a number of database systems. There was lots of spreadsheets. You know, and the enthusiasm, you know, sort of for both the 1000 and the 2068 carried through enough that there was some kind of newsletter being published up until I think it was 2001 was when the last, yes, exactly, the last physical newsletter was published was in 2001 or 2. I can double check the date, but it's you know, the point being is it's a very long time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and actually one of the folks that's here is Tim Swenson. He was one of the folks who, you know, was contributing to that. He had a 2068 briefly, but he also had a 1000. And after his 2068, he got one of those Sinclair QLs, but we still let him come to the meetings.
Oh, Tim.
No, Tim actually did a lot of writing about the QL, which was kind of his, you know.
Well, he actually still does. I mean,
He still does, exactly,
yeah,
right. And Tim is, you know, every once in a while he started a newsletter a couple years back, and every once in a while he puts out a new newsletter that covers, you know, aspects of the 1000 or the 2068. And you know, you're here today with all of us crazy people.
So I also found a few cassette tapes.
Oh boy.
This one is labeled Timex free tape.
Oh, a tape was included with 2068, and there was 3 programs on it. One was a keyboard tutor and
the keyboard tutorial, Turtle Graphics, and home accounting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. So you have a pre-production version.
Yeah. I guess so. Okay.
Or his backup copy.
Your backup copy, yes.
This one says 64 call code 57344, 1310.
Wow. So that's
Loader DS.
So that
what
would
are
be
you
somebody's...
wowing about, David? What does that mean to you?
So to me, that's you know, there's some example code in the technical manual about how to do 40, 64, and I think 80-ish columns, and that may be what what you have is, you know, somebody's attempt at a 64 column mode, you know, code to support the 64 columns. Wow. So you really did have a you know, treasure trove.
Yeah, and this one says The Hobbit.
Yes.
Very popular Spectrum program. I don't think that was released for the Timex 2068 though, was it?
This says the Spectrum only.
Right. Right. So you would have had to use that.
And internal use only.
Oh, yes.
And it also says copied by RAC, tape copier to the stars. I have no idea who RAC might be.
Well, or who the stars are. That's crazy.
And then I have this.
That's exactly what I was talking about. That's a Exatron stringy floppy.
Yeah.
Wow. So that might have been, they made one for the 1000. They made a unit that plugged into the 1000. Or that may have been from the model for the 2000. It's hard to say. Wow. We actually have somebody who's, I don't know if he's here with us today, but we do have oh yeah, Willie's here. Willie Jones has one of those A&J micro. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one too. I've got a 2000 version.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've got. They're pretty cool.
And Willie was just asking about tapes the other day.
I actually need some of those tapes, man, because I don't have any of that. I used,
yeah, you know me, bros.
Yeah, because I used that micro drive, like I said, when I was doing stuff for Art Colgate. You know, when we were doing the developing my diagnostic cartridge, I would use that. You know, he bought one of those A&J micro drives, and that thing was awesome because it was so much faster than tape.
So Lon, that's another interesting story. Carl, I'll let Carl, give you the details, but as a kid, Carl worked for this guy who bought a raft of 2068s to use them to drive. What was it? A cam?
It was a 3-axis milling machine.
3-axis, crazy. And so Carl wrote a cartridge to test whether the 2068 was good, and then if it was good, then it could be repurposed into driving this milling machine.
Yeah, because he bought, once Timex closed out, I guess he got a good deal on like customer returns or, those kind of things. Maybe models that didn't sell, but we didn't know if they were good or not. So that's kind of why he tasked me to come up with something that we could test to make sure these 2068s would work.
So Lon, in 1987, you boxed up your Timex and you haven't looked at it since. But did you use it at all in those 3 years much, or not so much?
Well, I bought a Macintosh in December of 1984, and I'm pretty confident I did not use the Timex after then.
Yeah, and I remember those Macs, those ones from '84. They were great, but they were
the
also.
Timex had color. The Timex had color.
It was a fat Mac.
Yeah.
Who could imagine having so much memory?
Indeed.
Well, Bill Gates said you're never going to need more than 640K.
So, Lon, if you want any help scanning your copious quantities of documentation, I'm here for you. we could talk about that offline, but so I guess does anybody else have questions for Lon? Oh, you're gonna have to unmute yourself if you do.
Yeah, I don't know if I really have any questions.
Well, of course, if no one's going to jump in, I was giving some people some time. But okay. So,
and then there's Adam, who has the questions.
So I was, while people were chatting, I did look up to see what kind of support CP/M had for tapes. And apparently it does have support built into just the standard model. And it was used by certain computers that booted from ROM, which is what you were saying the 2068 would have done. So I guess if when you went out to digital research, maybe they already had some of these computers. I guess Sharp made some. I don't know what the time overlap would have been, but you would have talked to your tape drive as a serial device. But the microcassettes, were they? I mean, could fast forward and rewind on their own? Am I correct? Or you could
No.
under software control?
Fast forward only. They just went for, it's kind of like an 8-track. It's just a little bitty 8-track with only one track.
So CPM, if in the ROM, would have basically had to load software also from a ROM and then just save to tapes then? I mean, I'm trying to still wrap my, sorry about that. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how software would have loaded conveniently for a user, you know, for CPM, which was essentially a disk-only system.
So if as Lon's notes, you know, indicate, there was a cartridge that would have taken control of the entire system, and perhaps even, oh wow, you know, your display file was right smack in the middle of memory too. I wonder how that would have been handled. The ROM would have loaded all the rest of CPM up to the prompt off of tape, just because that's you know, the way it worked with the disk-based systems. So it'd be real, you know, and then you could just, you know, if you needed to issue bug fixes or whatever, you just put out a new tape. You don't have to put out a new ROM. Do you recall, Lon, if that was your plan, to boot to boot from the ROM and then start reading from, you know, sort of a master tape?
I'm afraid I don't recall. Maybe in my notes.
Yeah, right.
Someday I'll have to read my notes.
Yeah.
Isn't CPM noted on the 2068 box? Or I thought it was stated somewhere that it could run CPM on the 2068 somewhere. I can't remember where, but I distinctly remember seeing that somewhere, that was a feature that, you know, quote unquote, that the 2068 could potentially do. I have to go look at my box, but I don't think it's on the box, but maybe.
Lon, Will seemed to think that Dave Boyle was the person who wrote some of that bank switching stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was his primary task for the first few months.
Yeah. Wow. Few months. I mean, to me, that's mind-boggling that, you know, that's all it takes, you know. But I mean, if you're working at a full time, sure, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can get done, and you don't need hundreds of people to do something. And so many companies seem to do. I mean,
well, not back then. You didn't. It seems like you do now.
I'm always astounded when I hear of a company laying off 300 engineers, and it's 10% of their workforce, and they do one product. Wait, what are these people doing all the day?
You'd be surprised.
But yeah, I know you guys for Timex, you know, you always had a lot of deadlines, right? So that kind of always pushed you to, hey man, I got to get this done by so and so, you know. And I'm sure a lot of things didn't get done, but I mean, you know, you still had the knife under your throat, so to speak, to get it done.
Yeah.
Cool. Just going back to the CPM, I think I remember that the Coleco item actually had a CPM on it, and you can use tape for storage. So CPM had some drivers for the tape drives, not regular tape drives that were included inside the Coleco item. I think that I saw that already.
Well, you know, just diskettes are really just flat cassette tapes, you know.
Yeah. Is that right?
If you well, it's magnetic media, you know, it's just spinning around instead of wrapped up in a cassette tape. But anyway, same kind of.
Well, the whole random access thing is what makes it, you know, a little different, just a bit.
Well, yeah, that's the benefit of having it spinning it, right? You can move the head wherever you need to, but.
Well, Lon, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We meet usually the first Monday, usually the third Sunday, except there's some holidays, so we're gonna not meet on the first Monday, like this coming the first Monday. And please feel free to, come back and join us and show us more from your treasure trove.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's the article from AP about the end of Timex computers.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And where's this article in? You said?
Well, it was from AP, but
yeah,
it was run everywhere.
I suspect I got this out of the Danbury newspaper.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I remember somebody was mentioning that. Yeah, whoever the running, the owner of Timex at the time was like, I think they would kind of dump 55 million into this, and they were like, I guess they didn't think it was going to be profitable enough, so they just said hell with it.
Yeah, I don't know how much money they put into it, but I do recall being told that in the Christmas season they did sell quite a few of them. I don't remember the numbers, but I remember being told that just with the slim profit margin on each computer selling at that price, they just didn't sell enough.
Wow.
So I don't know what enough would have been.
Right.
Yeah, I do remember, when that happened, it's like I said, it still hurts. When I think about it, I mean, it doesn't hurt as much now, obviously 40 years later, but because I thought, yeah, it was a good computer. Like I said, it did have favorable press, and then, a month or two later, Timex pulls out, and you're like, it feels like the rug was pulled, out from under you, really.
Yeah, it felt like they didn't give it enough time.
Right.
Right. That's crazy.
But it wasn't my money, so.
Right, and that's what I understood was whoever owned Timex, the whole company was, seeing, I think it was 55 million or something like that they'd put into it by that time, and they were like, he just felt that it wasn't going to be, his cup of tea, and so yeah, he just decided to close that part of it down.
Yeah.
And obviously something in Portugal, was obviously different because they kept going. I don't know if you know that, Lon, but Timex in Portugal kept going. They kept making machines, and under the Timex Sinclair, well, the Timex brand anyway, but they actually kept going, and that's where a lot of the cottage industry stuff for us in the US, kind of was feeding off of them because they were still developing the machine.
Lon, who are we looking at here?
This is Dave Boyle.
Okay.
This was a picture from my wedding in 1993.
Wow.
So I just wanted to show you guys what Dave looked like. He passed away in 2011 at age 56.
That's young, man.
Yeah, heart attack.
That's too bad.
Yes.
The bank switching stuff will remain ever a mystery.
I still think Dave was the best engineer I've ever worked with.
Well, the code that he wrote is really ingenious. It's very impressive what it does, because I say this because I spent a considerable amount of time over the past couple of years working on trying to comment a disassembly of that code. And so, in order to comment, I have to understand it. And it's taken me a fair bit to work through that, but it's pretty astounding, how he worked out a method for supporting a lot of banks, through this sort of tiny pipe. It looked really interesting.
Yeah.
And I remember doing Z80 code, and you're right, Dave. You learn some tricks.
Yeah.
Right, to save space, and to let's say like you want to zero out a register. right?
Yeah.
Instead of loading the register with 0, you just XOR it with itself. It's just one opcode. It takes, it doesn't take 3 opcodes, and it does the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
But if you're disassembling it and you're like, well, why are they XORing this register with itself? It's gonna be 0. Well, exactly. You're forcing that register 0, right?
Yeah. I've learned a lot about Z80 programming just by working on documenting that those 2 ROMs. It's pretty astounding.
I don't know if it'd be okay to interrupt since we have about 20 minutes left.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things I wanted to ask, and Tim is here. This would be Tim H, T2. I wanted to ask, I think you're here. If you are, speak up. I think I saw you earlier.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, cool. Well, you made that update to ZMake Basic, right? Could you talk about that for a couple of minutes, and maybe give some background on what it is, because I don't know if everyone here is familiar with what it is, and then maybe tell us what you did, because I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, it's video on. Yeah, it's Tim Swenson pointed me to it, and I've used the ZX81 derivative. There's a thing called text to BAS or something like that it's called. But it turned out that's a complete rip-off of ZMakeBAS. The guy that did it posted a thing in a forum, and the original writer of ZMakeBAS sort of says, you lifted quite a lot of my code. And so now there's a little comment in there saying, yes, I grabbed a bit of it from there. But yeah, Tim had this wonderful little shell script that sort of played a trick by substituting keywords into the actual character set for the token in the thing. And I sort of thought, I wonder how much of a tweak it would be. And just through a bit of luck, it was fairly straightforward. There's a ZMakeBAS, at least the iteration I grabbed, supports ZX81, and it supports
well, do you mind if I just say what the ZMakeBAS is real quick? Because I don't know if everyone understands. Basically, you can program in BASIC using a text file, and then use this command line utility to convert it to a tape file that you can just load under emulation, or you can convert it to a WAV file so you can load on a real machine. So you don't have to code on the actual hardware.
Oh, thanks for that, Adam.
That's half the fun, is typing all that stuff.
It's the keyboard is the key.
Yeah, we do appreciate some speed of efficiency of typing these days.
We just got lazy.
That's why I made my own keyboard.
We do.
Well,
we just
go
got
ahead,
lazy.
Tim, and let us know what changes you made, because it only supported the spectrum and none of the special keywords, correct?
Yeah. There's like 4 or 5 keywords at the Timex Sinclair 2000 basic or 2068 basic had, and so when I had a look, someone's extended it to support ZX81 code keywords, and they'd also extended it to support Spectrum Next, which is a sort of FPGA generation of the Spectrum. Everyone probably familiar with it, and also SpectraNet, which was a sort of Ethernet interface that sort of overlaid the various tokens that started with % to connect to the internet and do various other bits. And so we sort of lucked in, because Spectrum Next started at the bottom of the Sinclair keywords and worked down towards 0, and the SpectraNet sort of overlaid the top section, and then about 4 or 5 down from the end of the Spectrum Next ones is where the 2068 put its keywords. So it was really sort of fairly simple to slot it in, just the extra few four words. And the only real trap there was that the on keyword is used in Spectrum Next. They have an on error, and Timex Sinclair have an on on error as well. And so there's a little sort of overlap there I had to deal with. But yeah, it did like 10 lines of code to fix it, maybe 15 or 20, not much to fix.
I messed around with it, but was it yesterday? And just tried a quick program that used the sound command, and it worked. I was happy to see.
Yeah, I banged it into an emulator. It seemed to do everything. I like Adam. If anyone does have something that can be an example, there's several examples in there for Spectrum and Spectrum Next in the source code. It'd be nice to bang one in there that did something for the 2068 that had all the keywords.
To your point, Tim, I probably have something. between all the scanning that I've done in the past couple of weeks. Just so you guys know, Jack Boatwright sent me these 2 large boxes of stuff, right? And I have scanned a banker box and a half, which I think is 2.5 linear feet of paper. This much. A lot. Just scads and scads of interesting looking articles and programs that folks, wrote over the years that to do all kinds of crazy things. As
These
an
are all
inventory.
primarily from the Timex newsletters that were
That's
released
correct.
up until 2001 or something, you said, which is
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Real quick, the first Monday of July is July 4th. My wife likes fireworks, so we're going to be seeing some fireworks, and we will have our next meeting on whatever the following Monday is. I think it's the 11th, but I'll send out a reminder about that. And there's some other holidays. Labor Day is the first Monday of the month as well in September, and so we'll adjust for that. So yeah, that's just a little business for the future. Lon,
Also, David, when you have the community area of your website, if you do change dates, maybe you can mention it there. I don't know, it might be a kind of a pain to update that area all the time, but
you know what, maybe I'll try to put a calendar of upcoming meetings on that page, because it's a thing I've been thinking about is, I have it in Google Calendar, but it's not accessible unless you're a person who has a Google account. And so if anybody knows of a really easy to use, robust, public, just wide open, viewable calendar system, let me know. So I can, and especially if it will let me embed a calendar, within a page, like through an iframe or something, that would be fantastic. Because I just want to put the, schedule of the next, say, 6 or 10 of our meetings up so people can find them easily. I'll do some digging too. But I want to go back to Lon real quick. Lon, thank you so much for your time and for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
It's absolutely fantastic, hearing all this stuff. I really look forward.
Quite a trip down memory lane.
I look forward to finding out about what's in that, big pile to your right. It's extremely intriguing to me. And also equally curious about the contents of those ROMs that you have. I don't know if you have a reader or not. I
don't.
Oh, okay. Love to see what's in those, because
one of them sounded like it was maybe a 2068 version of Ant Attack.
You did, right.
Yeah.
And I know that Scrabble was shown, or Scrabble was at least mentioned at the Boston Timex. They had this celebration back in '83 that Dan Ross went to. It was recorded. It's on YouTube, actually.
I watched that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
I remember hearing about it at the time, but I never saw that before.
And one of the people who was really, really heavily involved in that Boston group, Sue Mahoney, eventually came to work for Timex for a fair bit.
She headed up documentation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she did. Didn't she do something with the Timex Ramblings? Wasn't she part of that too?
She may have been involved. There was another guy who was the editor of that.
Okay.
She was also sort of a community user group liaison person. So Lon, as I was saying, my thing for a long time now has been trying to preserve all of this knowledge as much as possible. And so, I mentioned scanning a huge quantity of stuff, and then I upload it to archive.org, which, they have a bigger budget than I do for maintaining a website. And hopefully it'll be available for a long time to come, and to widely, more widely than So anything, that you want to share, that you want to let me upload to archive.org, would love to do that.
Okay.
Cool.
You say that, and something's interesting in the Atari community, for the Antic podcast. One of the more interesting bits is, there's the newsletters and the magazines, but some people who have been part of the community have notebooks like you have that have allowed them to be scanned. And looking through them, it's amazing, the behind the scenes stuff that you find out that was going on, and you're like, what is going on? And it's I think some of the most important documentation that can be archived is this private stuff that was what's going on in your own head. So I'd love to see that archived if you would allow that, for sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Certainly there was never any intent for anyone other than me to see that.
Right.
But I doubt whether there's anything in there that couldn't be made public.
Yeah, so Adam mentions this engineers, I don't know if you guys were required to keep lab books, but it's pretty clear that the folks at Atari were. And so at least one of these things, made it to somebody who was able to scan it and upload it. And it, like Adam said, absolutely fascinating insight into the development process. Really, really neat to see all those notes and, what that engineer was thinking, on a particular day, in February of, 84. Timex kills computer.
I do recall at Burroughs, we were required to keep those books, but no one ever wrote anything in them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did it just go on the computer instead? The mainframe?
They were just random pieces of paper or whatever.
Oh dear Lord, you're a manager's nightmare.
David, if you need any help with scanning, I'm always available.
Cool, thank you.
I'm actually getting a new scanning. It's a book scanner, the Caesar.
Oh yeah,
I think it's a CZ24. It was a Kickstarter. They just finished it or wrapping it up now.
Yeah,
a 24 megapixel, but it's meant to scan books, right?
Yep.
I mean, all my equipment that I have I'd have to take it apart.
Yeah.
And obviously people are trying to preserve stuff they don't want to pull the bindings apart on, and stuff that I think Adam kind of recently. And so it's got little finger cots that you can kind of spread the book open, and it takes pictures, and you have a foot thing where you can just push your foot on it and it'll, take a picture, and then you can switch the page and put your foot down so you don't have to have your hands.
Wow.
You can use your hands to keep the book open and don't have to push anything. So,
and then the software flattens it, right? If it's got curve and stuff.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
It's got lasers that shoot across it, and then it sees how the lasers are, and then it flattens the page out, right?
Nice.
Right.
So the guy
We also use one of those. We use several types of scanners in the documentation process, but that's one of the ones we use for bigger things. They're handy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and I was almost going to get the 18, their current model, but then they're like, well, they've got this new one. It's a Kickstarter, and it's only $400, and so it's cheaper. It's cheaper than the 18 gig or the 18 megapixel model. So I was like, well, I'll try that, because I do have some stuff that I don't particularly want to take apart, right? And and I don't really have anything to scan it other than maybe taking pictures, with your cell phone or a DSLR or something like that. But then you can't flatten it. How are you gonna? You'd have to use somebody's software to flatten it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, if we ever came into some green bar from somebody, if anybody ever lent us their green bar for scanning.
Who's ever seen green bar? Who knows where that might be?
I don't know.
And two, well, I got you guys, kind of I like the new acquisitions or things that I picked up.
Yes.
So there's somebody in Egypt that was selling a bunch of Sinclair stuff. I don't know if anybody's, trying to get this stuff, but one of the first things is a Sinclair joystick, right? I'm sure you guys in Portugal or maybe even the UK. I don't have one of these, and I was like, well, he was selling it. It's a an SJS one. Well, I do have one now, but it's a genuine, uh, uh, a genuine Sinclair joystick,
Oh, that's
which
crazy.
I hear is really horrible. But hey, I have one.
It looks like a clone of the Quick Shot, actually.
Yeah.
It might be, it's got some suction cups on the bottom. It's really wiggly though. It just, it's got so much free, play. I imagine it's probably kind of crappy, but people have said it's horrible, so I imagine it is. So
Over
that's
here-
that. What's that?
I was just saying, over here, everyone would stick to the Kempston, let's say,
Right.
protocol. So they were not very successful, but they are easy to find. Probably not in Portugal, but in the UK, yes.
Yeah. This guy's in Egypt, so I don't know why.
I think I
how he's
saw a
got it.
guy in Egypt selling lots and lots of things. Some of them
Yes.
very interesting, but at the same time, I think there were a few that were very expensive. That's what I remember. Not sure if it's the same guy or not.
It might be because he was actually selling a Sinclair. I think it's a PC 200, which is like a PC that.
Yep.
It's Amstrad. It's really an Amstrad machine inside. It's just Sinclair by name. But another thing I got that I kind of wanted to know is one of the the Spectrum Pluses. Right. I don't have. They didn't sell these here in this country. Right. But it's the the guy that made. What's his name? Ian. He passed away when he was doing the Sinclair Next design. Right. The industrial design for the Sinclair Next. And he's the one that originally made this design, and actually the original one that made I think even going back to the ZX80, right?
So,
Or
Carl,
maybe 80.
English Microsystems actually imported that.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they. Yeah, you
A
probably
few.
could buy it here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not officially, right?
Right, not officially, and I guess the keyboard membrane doesn't work or something because this thing's got like clamps that go up in the top up here that push the Mylars together or something like that. I haven't opened this thing yet. Yeah.
Carl, if I may just make a very quick comment because then I'll be leaving. So regarding the keyboard, the membrane needs to be replaced. They are easy to get here. If you have difficulties, let me know. We can help you to find one somehow. It's the same for the toast rack and for that one. The other thing it's just a curiosity I was going to say. I don't know if you guys know that in Egypt, the distributor would sell a customized version of the Spectrum that runs in Arab. So it's basically they inserted a tiny switch in the computer where it would allow you to switch between a normal ROM or an Arab ROM, where the computer really writes from the right to the left. I have two of those. One of them is a Plus. The other one I have is a +2, the gray one. I think there is a +3 that I don't have. And you can only find them in Egypt. So when you said you bought them in Egypt, I was curious.
Yeah, he had a bunch of Arab software, Timex Arab software.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get any of that because I wouldn't be able to read it. But he was selling some of that stuff too. And then finally,
okay, guys, I'll be leaving for our other videos. Stay safe. We will be in touch and see you next time.
Again.
Thanks, Joel.
Okay, bye.
And the final one is actually like you said, this is
nice.
Can I
there you
this
go.
is the +2. Right. So
whenever you're showing me these things, Carl, you have to remember, I know where you live. So, and you only live across town. So I'm just going to, drive my car over there.
I hide these pretty well. So you'd be searching for a while. But so I got one of these +2s. He did have a +3 that I wasn't willing to spend the money that it went for. I think this was like $100
actually.
This was like $100, $110. So that's why I was like, wow, that's great. And usually you see these things, they're $200-300, right? And this works. Well, he had it on the screen. I haven't hooked it up yet. I just got these like
Is the Spectrum +2 or whatever it's called? Does that have like the extra sound chip in it and stuff, or not yet?
This one does. Yes, this was a 128K version too. So it does bank switching, and it's got some unique connectors on the back, especially the keypad, right, and the
RS2,
the RS232. They're almost like Ethernet kind of looking jacks, but they're
RJ11.
They are
they're
British
really
phone
weird
connectors.
Yeah, they're really strange. I mean, I've never seen them here, but I mean, you look inside and they kind of got those RJ11, RJ45 spring-loaded fingers in there.
So we've got about
And,
5 more minutes to wrap things up. David,
Yep.
is there any closing business we have before we drop away like flies, I suppose?
Right. Well, I'm going to send out an update with links to all the stuff that I have scanned since the last time I sent an update. And it's pretty.
You're going to send to the groups.io?
I'll send it to the groups.io address. Yep. I will probably in a week or so send from my mailing list thing a kind of longish newsletter that includes a link to, this and several other videos, to other kinds of interesting resources I've come across on the net that I think you guys would like seeing. And it'll be full of pictures and full of links. It'll keep you busy for minutes at a time. But yeah, next meeting is going to be, let me just bring up my calendar. Our next meeting is not next Monday because that's Independence Day. It is going to be Monday, July 11th, 9 p.m. Eastern. And again, I'll send out a reminder about that.
I know we don't have an agenda yet for that one, but
Right.
I did put a link in the show notes because I did finish reading Behind the, what is it called?
That's
Gaming
right.
the Iron Curtain. And possibly we might be able to have the author of that talk. I did email him and he responded. And
yes,
he's
I would
from
love to have him.
Czechoslovakia, or was when that was a country. And the book is about that, the Sinclair and how it, what it was like to own one and how the scene was in the 1980s. And if anyone has a chance to read that book, highly, highly, highly recommend it. I just finished it last week and it's great. It was published just like 2 years ago.
I have a little tie-in to that.
Is that about computers in the Iron Curtain? Behind the Iron Curtain?
Yeah.
And specifically in Czechoslovakia only, actually.
Oh, okay. I actually have one of those.
Oh,
so
great.
I got
You should
one
read
of
the
those
book if you
to
haven't
offer
yet.
to the museum. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually have them around there. I bought them about a year ago. Still haven't run it. No. Okay. It's very well made, surprisingly well made. Okay. The keyboard is very, very good. Much better than the TS one, the Timex keyboards. Much better than the Chicote keyboards. I was astonished by that. And
Let me back up. So you bought one of the strange Czechoslovakian computers?
Yeah.
Wow. Those things are so rare.
Let me
Holy
just
crap.
get that.
So while Daniel's walking away, Steno mentioned that one of his programs is in this book that has a current Kickstarter right now called 50 Years of Text Adventures or something like that. And it is going to be a big, huge, thick book that covers like the spectrum of, no pun intended, of text adventure games, from adventure to, the present day. I'll include a link to that. I'll send a link to that on the groups list.
Yeah, so here it is.
Wow.
So
Who makes that
it's
one?
got-
What does it say up there on the left?
It's didactic.
Didactic.
Yeah, okay. I think they only made
Okay.
5,000 of those. That's what I think the book
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is and the keyboard actually is very nice. And you have the cursor keys.
Yeah.
Really
That
nice
looks
cursor
sweet.
keys. Okay. And extra large. I don't know why, but extra large.
It's for people like me.
lettering on it.
It's for people
Yeah.
like me who need them.
for some of us, that's not extra large. That's just the size that we need.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So on the back it says actually, as I don't know, maybe you cannot see it. It says didactic Slavic. So I think some kind of numbering, and it's got some weird connectors as well.
Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
But actually, if you boot it up, it's Sinclair. Okay, so it has a ROM, which it mimics the Sinclair. It has a different ROM message, copyright message, than the Sinclair, but actually it runs 48K software on it. Okay.
Very
It comes
cool.
in very nice box.
And
It also
notice
uses
too,
the ULA. They actually got permission
Look, Carl
from
vanished.
Sinclair to use the ULA.
yeah, I'm trying to get it in there, but you notice on the spec on the 2+2 and the +3, there's no keywords.
Oh yeah,
Right.
my God.
Yeah, the key. Well, there's a
God.
few like run and load and code, but you can, because it has that new ROM, right?
Oh.
Where you boot it up and it's got
Mhm. You can type them in.
Spectrum thing. You can type print, or you can, and it tokenizes it for you, right? Just so you know.
So I'm going to wrap up. I want to thank everybody new who joined us. Renee, come back. Daniel, come back.
Join
I know
the
it's
group.io if you can.
Yeah.
Because who needs Facebook?
Who needs Facebook? Exactly. Some things are on Facebook. Lon's on Facebook. So thank you everybody for joining us, especially the new folks. And we hold these Sunday ones at 2:00 just so folks from Europe and other time zones can join in on the fun. So we'll see you 2-3 weeks, right? And then we'll see you probably a week or so after that on a Sunday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, David. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.